The vast emptiness of space held many secrets, but none more remarkable than the story of the coral, a species teetering on the edge of total extinction. Their once proud civilization had crumbled like ancient ruins, leaving behind only scattered remnants of a culture that seemed destined to fade into cosmic oblivion. Captain J. Park's research vessel, the Horizon, drifted silently through the Andromeda sector, its advanced sensors cutting through the darkness. Nobody expected what they would discover that day, a dying civilization that would change everything. The first visual of the Coral homeworld was heartbreaking. Massive structures, once grand and intricate, now stood as skeletal remains against a barren landscape. Radiation scorched the planet's surface, and the few remaining inhabitants looked more like ghosts than living beings. Initial scans revealed a population of barely 47,000 individuals, spread across 3 deteriorating orbital stations. Their genetic code was a mess of mutations, each generation weaker than the last. Most children died before reaching adolescence, and those who survived carried the weight of their species' impending doom. When the first communication was established, the Coral's lead representative, an elder named Roth, appeared on the ship's main screen. His body was frail, his eyes sunken, but a spark of intelligence remained. He spoke not with desperation, but with a calm acceptance of their inevitable extinction. "We are the last," Roth explained, his voice crackling through the communication system. "Our species has been dying for generations. We have tried everything." J. Park studied the transmission, his scientific mind already racing with possibilities. The Coral's genetic structure was complex, damaged but not completely irreparable. Where others might have seen a lost cause, he saw a challenge. The ship's xenobiological team began collecting data: blood samples, tissue scans, environmental records. Everything was meticulously documented. They discovered that the Coral had once been a highly advanced species, with technology that rivaled many known galactic civilizations. Something catastrophic had happened, something that had reduced them to this tragic state. Orbital surveys revealed the remnants of what appeared to be a massive technological disaster. Huge energy signatures suggested a planetary-scale event that had occurred roughly 3 centuries earlier. Radiation patterns, genetic mutation rates, and environmental data all pointed to a technological experiment gone horrifically wrong. The Coral stations were cramped, with minimal life support systems barely maintaining functionality. Each station housed around 15,000 individuals, living in tight, controlled environments. Medical facilities were primitive, focused more on managing slow decline than actual treatment. What fascinated Jay most was the Coral's remarkable mental resilience. Despite their physical degradation, their cognitive abilities remained sharp. They maintained complex cultural records, preserved their history, and showed an incredible will to survive. During initial interactions, the Coral displayed neither anger nor hope. They were a species that had accepted their fate, methodically recording their own decline for whatever future might remember them. Each individual seemed to understand they were part of a larger, tragic narrative. Commander Lisa Rodriguez, the ship's lead geneticist, approached Jay with her initial findings. "Their genetic structure is like a complex puzzle," she said, spreading holographic images of molecular chains. "It's damaged, but not beyond repair. We might actually have a chance to help them." The human crew began discussing potential intervention strategies. This wasn't just a scientific mission anymore. It had become a potential lifeline for an entire species. Roth, the Coral elder, watched these discussions with a mixture of curiosity and distant hope. He had seen many potential saviors come and go, but something about this human team felt different. They weren't just observing, they were thinking, analyzing, planning. As the Horizon continued its detailed survey, nobody knew that this encounter would mark the beginning of an extraordinary journey. The Coral, a species on the brink of total extinction, were about to experience something they had long forgotten: a chance at survival. The stars outside seemed to watch silently, witnesses to a potential resurrection that would soon change the course of galactic history. The medical bay of the Horizon hummed with quiet intensity. Dr. Hai Kim stood before a massive holographic display, her eyes tracing the complicated genetic sequences of the coral species. Months of research had led to this moment, the first real chance at restoration. Initial treatments began cautiously. The coral were fragile, and any mistake could push them closer to extinction. Dr. Kim developed a series of targeted genetic repair protocols, using a combination of advanced CRISPR techniques and quantum molecular reconstruction. Roth, the elder who had first contacted the humans, volunteered to be the first test subject. His body was a map of genetic damage, years of radiation and environmental stress etched into every cell. When the first treatment began, the medical team held their collective breath. The process was slow and painful. Nanobots carefully rewove damaged genetic strands, rebuilding cellular structures that had been broken for generations. Roth's body fought the treatment, his system so used to degradation that healing felt like an alien process. Days turned into weeks. The first signs of success were subtle. Blood tests showed reduced mutation rates. Cellular regeneration increased by small but significant margins. The medical team celebrated each microscopic victory. In the adjacent research station, other coral volunteers began their own treatments. Young and old, they represented the last hope of their species. Each treatment was carefully monitored, each reaction meticulously recorded. Commander Lisa Rodriguez noticed something unexpected. The coral weren't just responding to treatment. They were adapting. Their bodies seemed to be learning, reconstructing themselves in ways the human team hadn't anticipated. One young coral named Vren showed the most remarkable progress. Where most of his peers struggled to survive past their teenage years, he began to show signs of robust health. His muscles grew stronger, his cognitive functions enhanced. It was as if generations of genetic damage were being systematically erased. The human team discovered that the coral's original genetic structure had been incredibly advanced. Whatever catastrophe had reduced them to near extinction had also hidden a remarkable potential for recovery. Each treatment was like unlocking a complex puzzle. Cultural exchange became an unexpected benefit of the medical intervention. The coral shared stories of their past, detailed records of a civilization that had once been incredibly sophisticated. Their historical archives provided crucial insights into their genetic history. Challenges remained constant. Some treatments failed. Some patients experienced setbacks. The medical team worked around the clock, adjusting protocols, learning from each success and failure. Roth became a symbol of hope. As his body slowly recovered, he began to speak about the potential future of his species. His eyes, once dull and resigned, now sparkled with a renewed sense of possibility. The human crew realized they were doing more than just medical treatment. They were helping to resurrect an entire civilization. Each genetic repair was a thread in a larger tapestry of survival. Technological interfaces were developed to support the coral's recovery. Advanced medical equipment was modified to work with their unique biological structure. What had started as a research mission was becoming a full-scale restoration project. Vren became the first fully recovered coral. His body showed no signs of the genetic damage that had plagued his people for generations. More importantly, his mind was sharp, adaptive, and filled with potential. The research teams began to understand the root cause of the coral's decline. An ancient technological experiment had gone wrong, releasing radiation and genetic mutations that had slowly destroyed their species over centuries. Now they were finally getting a chance to reverse that damage. As weeks turned into months, the medical bay of the horizon transformed. What had once been a place of quiet desperation now buzzed with hope and potential. The coral were changing, recovering, becoming something new. Roth looked at the young coral around him, Vren and others who were being restored, and saw the first glimpses of a future he had never believed possible. The humans had done more than save their species. They had given them a second chance at existence. The stars outside continued their silent watch, bearing witness to a miracle of science and compassion. The transformation of the coral was unlike anything the galactic scientific community had ever witnessed. What began as a medical intervention had become a complete cultural and biological rebirth. Vren emerged as the most remarkable example of this change. Once a weak, struggling young coral, he now stood as a symbol of their species' potential. His body was strong, his mind sharp, and his spirit unbreakable. Where other coral had once accepted their slow decline, Vren saw only possibilities. The human research team watched in amazement as the coral began to rebuild their society. Their learning capabilities expanded exponentially. Technologies that had been lost for generations were quickly relearned and then improved upon. It was as if genetic restoration had unlocked hidden potential buried deep within their species. Commander David Chen became the primary diplomatic liaison between humans and the recovering coral. He noticed how quickly they adapted, absorbing knowledge at a rate that defied previous scientific understanding. What would have taken decades now happened in months. Technological workshops became the center of coral society. Young coral like Vren worked alongside human scientists, creating hybrid technologies that combined the best of both species. Energy, systems, medical technologies, and communication networks were completely reimagined. The first major breakthrough came in environmental reconstruction. The coral began developing technologies to heal their damaged homeworld. Massive atmospheric processors started cleaning centuries of radiation. Barren landscapes slowly showed signs of returning life. Vren led a team that developed a groundbreaking, planetary restoration system. Using a combination of advanced nanobots and genetic engineering, they could accelerate environmental recovery. What scientists had predicted would take centuries could now be accomplished in years. Cultural changes were equally dramatic. The coral's previous society had been defined by survival and slow decline. Now they embraced innovation, creativity, and rapid development. Art, music, and scientific exploration flourished in ways nobody had anticipated. The human research team found themselves learning as much from the coral as the coral learned from them. The species demonstrated an incredible ability to integrate new knowledge, to adapt, to grow. What had once been a dying civilization was now a beacon of potential. Religious and cultural leaders among the coral struggled to understand their transformation. Their ancient beliefs about inevitable extinction were completely shattered. Vren often spoke about their new reality, encouraging his people to embrace change rather than fear it. Medical advancements came quickly. The genetic restoration techniques used to save the coral were now being studied for potential use with other struggling species. What had begun as a specific intervention was becoming a universal solution. Space exploration programs were quickly established. The coral, once confined to a few damaged orbital stations, now began to look outward. Their rebuilt bodies and enhanced cognitive abilities made them natural explorers. Vren led the first deep space exploration team, pushing the boundaries of their newly recovered civilization. Political structures transformed. The old hierarchical systems based on survival gave way to more dynamic, collaborative governance. Vren became a key leader, not through traditional power structures but through his ability to inspire and innovate. The human team began to realize they had done more than save a species. They had midwifed the birth of a completely new civilization. The coral were no longer defined by their past weakness, but by their newfound strength and potential. Communication technologies developed at an unprecedented rate. The coral created networks that made previous galactic communication systems look primitive. Information flowed freely, knowledge was shared instantly, and collaborative problem-solving became their primary mode of existence. As the first year of their transformation came to a close, the changes were impossible to ignore. The coral had gone from a species on the brink of extinction to a civilization bursting with potential. Vren stood at the center of this transformation, a living testament to what was possible. The stars that had once seemed to watch their slow decline now seemed to shine with excitement. Something extraordinary was happening, a species reborn, reimagined, transformed. Somewhere in the vast darkness of space, the coral had found their future, and it was brighter than anyone could have imagined. The silence of deep space shattered, without warning. The Void Collective emerged from quantum slipstreams, their massive battleships blocking out starlight in the Gamma-9 system. Vren stood on the central command deck of the primary Corral defense platform. His enhanced senses detected the incoming threat seconds before the standard sensors could process the information. The Void Collective was known across multiple galaxies as a species that consumed and destroyed emerging civilizations. "Incoming attack formation," announced the tactical computer. Its voice was calm, almost disinterested. What the Void Collective didn't know was that the Corral were no longer the weak species they had targeted. Years of human-assisted genetic restoration and technological development had transformed them into something entirely unexpected. The first wave of Void attack drones approached, expecting minimal resistance. Their previous encounters with emerging species had always followed the same pattern: quick assault, total destruction, planetary consumption. Vren's fingers moved across holographic control panels with incredible precision. The Corral defense systems, a blend of human-inspired technology and their own innovative designs, came alive. Energy shields formed intricate geometric patterns, unlike anything the Void had encountered before. The first plasma torpedoes launched from Void battleships were intercepted mid-flight, not deflected, not absorbed, but literally dismantled by molecular disruption fields. Each torpedo broke down into harmless atomic particles before reaching their targets. "Target acquired." Vren's voice was steady. "Initiating counter-offensive." The Corral ships moved with a fluidity that defied traditional space combat strategies. Where other species would zigzag or create predictable defensive patterns, these ships seemed to flow like liquid mercury, anticipating attack vectors before they were even conceived. Quantum entanglement communication allowed instantaneous coordination between Corral vessels. Each ship moved as part of a larger, living organism. The Void Collective's sophisticated tracking systems became useless against this adaptive network. Commander David Chen watched from the human observation vessel, his mouth slightly open in disbelief. The species they had helped restore was now demonstrating capabilities beyond anything they had imagined. The battle wasn't just about firepower. It was a complex dance of strategy, technological innovation, and collective intelligence. The Corral had transformed warfare into an art form, combining biological adaptability with advanced technological systems. Void battleships began to fall, not through brute force, but through sophisticated technical manipulation. Corral ships didn't just destroy enemy vessels. They systematically disabled their core systems, turning massive warships into floating metal tombs. Vren's tactical approach was extraordinary. Instead of total destruction, he targeted communication systems, propulsion mechanisms, and energy cores. The Void Collective found themselves progressively paralyzed, their massive fleet becoming increasingly ineffective. 12 hours into the conflict, the results were clear. The Void Collective had lost 98% of their attacking force. 0 Corral casualties had been recorded. What should have been a simple extermination mission had turned into a complete tactical defeat. As the last Void battleship drifted powerless, communications intercepted from their dying systems revealed pure shock. They had not encountered a species like the Corral before, a civilization that could transform weakness into strength with such efficiency. The human observation team erupted in cheers. What they had started as a medical rescue mission had resulted in the creation of the most adaptive species in recent galactic history. Vren remained calm, almost philosophical. The battle was not just a military victory, but a statement about potential, about transformation, about the power of collaborative restoration. Communications across multiple star systems began discussing the unprecedented victory. The Corral were no longer seen as a recovering species, but as a potential galactic power. As stellar dust settled and damaged ships drifted, one thing became absolutely clear. The Corral were no longer victims. They had become something entirely new, a civilization forged through adversity, rebuilt through compassion, and tempered in the crucible of an impossible victory. The stars seemed to shine a little brighter that day, bearing witness to a transformation that would be remembered for generations. The Galactic Center buzzed with anticipation. Representatives from hundreds of species gathered to witness something unprecedented: the formal recognition of the Coral as a major civilizational power. Vren stood beside Ambassador Kai Li, representing both the Coral and their human allies. His presence alone told a story of transformation. Where once stood a member of a dying species, now stood a symbol of hope and potential. The Collaborative Interstellar Protocol was more than just a diplomatic document. It represented a fundamental shift in how civilizations could interact, heal, and grow together. The Coral had become living proof that recovery was possible, that a species could completely reinvent itself. Their first major contribution came through xenobiological restoration techniques. Planets once considered permanently damaged could now be rehabilitated. Species facing genetic collapse found new hope in the Coral-developed restoration technologies. During the ceremonial proceedings, holographic displays showed the journey of the Coral. From their near extinction to their current status, every stage of their transformation was documented. It was a story that moved even the most stoic galactic representatives. Ambassador Kai Li spoke with passion. The Coral represent more than a single species recovery, she explained. They represent the potential of collaborative scientific intervention. What humans began, the Coral completed. Technological exchanges became the new standard of galactic interaction. The Coral's hybrid technologies, combining biological adaptability with advanced engineering, revolutionized multiple scientific fields. Space exploration, medical research, and planetary reconstruction were transformed. Vren's team developed a universal genetic preservation framework. For the first time, species facing extinction had a comprehensive approach to survival. What had been a desperate medical intervention for the Coral was now becoming a standard galactic protocol. The human research team that had initially discovered the Coral were honored as heroes. Dr. Hai Kim, now leading the Interspecies Restoration Institute, became a legendary figure across multiple star systems. Young coral began spreading across the galaxy, not as conquerors, but as healers and innovators. They established research stations, medical centers, and collaborative learning institutes. Their approach was always the same: understand, adapt, restore. Political structures across the galaxy began to change. The old models of competition and territorial expansion gave way to collaborative development. The Coral demonstrated that true progress came through understanding and mutual growth. Environmental restoration became a primary focus. Planets that had been considered dead zones were now showing signs of life. The Coral's molecular reconstruction techniques could heal entire ecosystems in decades instead of centuries. Cultural exchanges flourished. The Coral's own art and music, born from their experience of transformation, became celebrated across multiple civilizations. Their stories of recovery inspired hope in societies facing their own challenges. The Human-Coral Alliance became the most significant interspecies cooperation in galactic history. What had started as a medical rescue mission had evolved into a fundamental reimagining of how intelligent species could interact. Vren often reflected on their journey. From a species moments away from total extinction to galactic leaders in restoration and innovation, their transformation was nothing short of miraculous. The humans had given them a chance, and they had seized it with both hands. Scientific conferences became platforms for showcasing coral innovations. Their approach to problem-solving, combining biological adaptability with technological innovation, changed how other species approached challenges. The galactic community watched in awe. The Coral were not just survivors, they were architects of a new way of existence. Their story became a beacon of hope for struggling civilizations across multiple star systems. As the ceremonial proceedings concluded, Vren looked out at the assembled representatives. Each species saw something different in the Coral: hope, potential, transformation. But they all saw the same fundamental truth: recovery was possible. The stars outside seemed to pulse with excitement. Another chapter in galactic history was being written and the coral were at its center. What had begun as a desperate medical intervention had become a galactic renaissance,